It's like, no, I don't think I got cell service.
You'll think on the fly.
Oh, yeah. It'll be fine.
Hillary Clinton cheating.
Good. Okay. Just for,
Good evening, Big Sky. How's everybody doing? All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Did everybody get food? We're loving it. We're here. We're live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, let's bring it down. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Good evening. My name's John Zirkle. I am one of your moderators tonight for the 2024 State of the Community. Wow, thank you, Kif, for making my voice sound so bassy in here. Really exciting. And then to my left is Tally Lancy.
Tally Lancy, that's just your voice.
We are really excited to be here. Community Week is off and rolling, and we love this year because every year it gets homier and homier. I remember when we were doing it, when we had people, like during COVID, it was like everyone was 30 feet away from each other, and we had the stand back there, and it's just really nice to see everybody out here. So here's the order of events for tonight. We got to get through a lot of information and a lot of folks. We have 5 panels. The panels are going to come sit up here. Sometimes there's going to be 3 people. Sometimes there's going to be 2 people and the carrot, because we didn't want to make it feel like there was an empty seat.
It's not a stick, it's a carrot.
It's just a carrot, right, which gets into the theme of hope, right, for Big Sky. That's why we wanted to have a carrot up there. Within each panel, we have 2 to 3 presenters, and we have made some pretty strict rules for our panelists. So those of you who are coming up tonight, thank you so much for being a part of this experiment. We asked each person who's coming up tonight 5 questions. The first one is, who are you and what do you do? That's a great one. I'm learning so much this week. I went to the voter forum last night and learned about people who were going for the government study forum, and it was putting names to faces. So that ballot's coming up. I think we have 22 names, and we have to pick 7. It's a difficult thing to do when you only know 1 out of the 22. And I was really grateful to get to see who these people are. So that's the first one. Who are you? What do you do? The second slide that we're going to see from each organization is a little bit of the history, and we asked them to go back to a year. When did the organization start? And if we can get at it, why did the organization start? What was the need for it? The third slide is a picture. And we asked each of the panelists to put a picture up to say, show us something that represents the work that you do, the why of it. What excites you about that organization? We're going to ask each panelist to talk about that picture. The fourth slide of 5 is a number. We said you can only put 1 number up. What is the most important stat that really shows where you are at? And we're going to ask each panelist to talk about that. And the 5th and final slide is 1 word, and we ask the question, where are we going? And we're hoping that everyone who's watching online and everyone who's here tonight can take something away feeling like they learned something new about each organization. Tally, how did I do? Is that clear?
You did great. Would you like to explain why our phone numbers are here?
Yeah. That was bold. I mean, we figure we should have it out in the community anyways. But every time we try to do an app or something where people do phones, then they spend the whole time like, I can't get the app to work. So if you've got cell service or Wi-Fi is BSSD, open internet. We're not going to do an open Q&A tonight. We thought that sometimes isn't totally equitable, but we do know that most people have phones and text. If you have a question that comes up, text us. And we promise we're going to be our best screenager version of ourselves, and we're only going to be looking at our phone. I learned that word this week. I don't know, has anyone heard screenager before? I learned it from teenagers. we're going to look at the phone, and then if we have time, we'll get to your question. Okay, that's the experiment this year. We're not going to do a Q&A. The thing we ask is when we're in the panel, that's the time to text us the question. We probably wouldn't want to text after the panel's done, just so we're clear on the rules when we have the conversation. Okay, is that good?
Our intent is to have you out of here by 8. So the sound booth folks are going to keep us on schedule.
Great.
It will feel hurried, and that's because we have a lot of information to get through.
Perfect. Rules for the panelists. They each got 5 slides. They have maximum 30 seconds per slide. I'm looking at Matt. I'm going, he's gonna be great. I know, he's at the end. So 30 seconds per slide. If you go over, Jenny will do the really polite thing and just advance the slide, and you'll be able to look up here. There's a good example.
And if anyone gets emotional about it, I'm here with the tissues.
There we go, I like it.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have an informal conversation afterwards. We've planned a few questions, but a lot of these are gonna be on the fly. We're gonna be looking at our phones, so we really want this to be an engaging evening for you, and we want to make this work, and we want to be out of here by 8 o'clock. Did I miss anything?
If anyone feels like they're in my living room, that's because this is all from my living room.
Thanks, Tally and Ken Lancy. Even the Perrier.
We're just trying to give you a very homey feel, and this is authentic. So welcome to my living room.
Perfect. With that, let's get going. We're going to start with our first panel, which is recreation and conservation. We'd like to bring up Deb Davidson from the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, Whitney Montgomery from the Big Sky Community Organization, and Kristen Gardner from Gallatin River Task Force. And as they're coming up, we want to ask you all really quickly a trivia question. The first one Tally wrote down. How many times has Ron Edwards driven the canyon in his career? Go ahead, discuss
any
amongst
guesses?
yourselves.
Just shout them out.
Over 6,000. Yep.
Wow.
You knew the answer. Great job. Who
You've
was
been
that?
listening at Community Week, Kenny. It's
Amazing.
over 6,000.
Kenny, give a round of applause for Kenny knowing that, and for Ron Edwards. And we're going to jump right in. We're going to start with, I believe, Deb. So Deb, we've got 30 seconds on the clock for each of those.
Let me make sure. Are we on? Oh, you guys can hear me. All right.
Okay, and then we wanted to start with everyone individually. We want to know your name, where you work, but also if you'd be so kind to share with us. Sorry, Deb, putting you on the spot. We've been thinking a lot about what keeps us in Big Sky, what keeps us in Montana. We know Big Sky is a transient community, but what is it that most brings you back to this area and keeps you here and keeps a strong foothold?
Okay, great. And Jenny, I'm looking for Jenny if I need her to advance. All right, because I might go faster on some of these. All right. Well, my name is Deb Davidson, and I'm so pleased to be here tonight. I am the Chief Strategy Officer at the Center for Large Landscape Conservation. I live in Kelly Canyon, which is on the east side of Bozeman, so I don't live down here. I have spent a fair bit of time in this region, or in Big Sky for sure. Lived in the region since 2020. Excuse me, 2000, not 2020, since 2000, so 25 years. What keeps me here is the wildlife, open space, and honestly, the people. I love the communities here, Big Sky, Bozeman, and beyond, Livingston. Next slide, please. So CLSC works at the intersection of the cutting-edge science, public policy, and on-the-ground practice to address connectivity and corridor conservation. We're based in Bozeman, Montana. We're nonprofit. We have 18 staff here and 12 across the country, and 1 in Brazil. The Northern Rockies, and especially here, the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, is our landscape laboratory. We have policy and science teams that work across the nation with a focus on addressing our most pressing conservation needs, and specifically working to ensure our habitats are connected and wildlife can move from one area to another. Next slide. And I apologize for reading, it's just I would have gone way over if I didn't. So I can't see this, but there's a map. Oh yeah, a map and a bear on here. So the elk herds and wildlife of our region need far more than Yellowstone National Park. That's the square in the middle of that map on the left side. Animals need more than just that square to survive. And you guys know this, having lived here. You see animals moving around all the time. They roam across boundaries. In fact, they don't know any boundaries. So Yellowstone National Park, Custer-Gallatin National Forest, private land are all parts of their daily and seasonal needs. And that includes US 191 and a very busy highway and 64. As development continues, more roads, more traffic, more human presence on the landscape, species lose access to resources and travel routes. We know that US 191 is a major problem for wildlife and people. You guys have all had your challenges on that road. From the Montana Department of Transportation, we learned that collisions with wildlife make up 24% of all collisions on US 191 from Four Corners to Big Sky, and that's over the statewide average of 10%. So for this reason, the Center for Large Landscape Conservation led a study of wildlife and transportation along US 191 and Montana 64 from Four Corners to West Yellowstone. We worked with MSU's Western Transportation Institute and had the help of local, state, and federal agencies. And we identified 11 priority sites where wildlife crossing measures could improve safety and maintain or improve habitat connectivity. Next slide. Oops, I think we
Maybe
jumped.
we go back
Go
a
back
slide.
to 85.
We're learning.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what does 85% mean? An 85% or greater reduction in wildlife vehicle collisions is attainable when the right type of wildlife crossing structures are put in the right place based on scientific assessments like ours. Wildlife crossings are very expensive at the outset, but they pay for themselves way ahead of their 75-plus year lifespan due to the cost savings of fewer wildlife vehicle collisions. With MDT, we submitted, so just in September, we submitted an application to the Federal Highways Wildlife Crossing Pilot Program for 3 wildlife crossings south of Gallatin Gateway, around mile marker 72, and then south to the bridge. And it's a $22 million request of Federal Highways Administration and $3.5 million in non-federal match, much of it which was raised from this community and beyond. If approved and constructed, these crossings will result in at least an 85% reduction of collisions at this busy section of the road where many of you travel regularly. Next slide, last slide. Okay, the word connected. We all enjoy this area's rich wildlife heritage, which is also a considerable driver of our economy. But wildlife need connected habitats to survive and thrive. Wildlife crossings and the protection of wildlife habitat represent an unprecedented opportunity to leave a priceless legacy for future generations. And really, this is our time now to decide if we want to maintain the future of Montana's iconic species in this region. So right now, we wait for results of our Gallatin Gateway area wildlife crossing application. We'll know in January, but we're not stopping our work, and we continue to work to connect the landscape along US 191. We appreciate the collaboration and strategic thinking with MDT, BizRad, Yellowstone Club Community Foundation, these two right here and others, as we seek to secure wildlife crossings on the other priority locations that have been identified, north of Big Sky and south. Finally, connected landscapes. The reason I use that was connected landscapes, connected wildlife populations, and connected people. And that's really our mission, and I hope that's something that Big Sky's future holds. So.
Thank you, Deb. Deb was the first one to go with this new timing requirement, and you did great. I'm going to just encourage our panelists. We have a monitor here. If the slide moves, that means 30 seconds has passed. We're all doing great, and we're going to come back to some of that in the conversation, okay? Next up, we have Whitney Montgomery from the Big Sky Community Organization.
Good evening. Thanks. First off, thanks everybody for being here. I think it says a lot about our community that so many people show up for these events. I actually went to the fire training facility at grand opening yesterday, and there were so many folks, I turned around and went back to my office because I had work to do. But it was great to see that many people out. It's very encouraging. So I'm Whitney Montgomery, work with the Big Sky Community Organization. BSCO, as many of you all know, is a nonprofit here in town that manages facilities and programs for our community. Everything we do is accessible. If there is a fee attached to it, we offer financial aid for those that need that. So we want to make sure that everybody can utilize all the facilities and amenities that BSCO offers. So one of the other things that people don't always think of BSCO for is we do a lot of childcare. In 2022, we started the after-school program called Base Camp. It's at Base. It's because there was not one at the school. And then, of course, we do Camp Big Sky, the summer childcare for working families that is in the park. The history of BSCO, 1998, BSEO was formed as part of the BSOA, and then several years later spun out to become the Big Sky Community Corporation, and then the name changed again to the Big Sky Community Organization. So now we manage 36 miles of trails, have over 100 acres of parks. That includes athletic fields, playgrounds, sport courts, the skate park, pump track, and then BASE, the community center that is open to everybody. It's the one facility in town that does not serve alcohol, that is accessible to everyone, and we're really proud of that fact. So, you know, part of so much of what we do, people think of us as just the trails and the parks organization. More and more, and I'll talk more about this in this slide, is community. So much of what we do is to strengthen the culture and fabric of this community by recreating together. I paraphrase our mission statement as building community through recreation. And if you go to any of our facilities, whether it be the Lynn Hill Park, where this photo is, the community park, inside BASE, you see people getting to know one another. And as our town continues to grow and evolve, it is so critical that we build relationships with one another, we learn to trust one another, we think about other people, not just ourselves. And to do that through recreation is just pretty darn special, I think. So that's why this photo that was chosen by Eva Zirkel to put on the slide is great. It's very, very true. You know, we live in a very generous community, and we operate successfully with support of BizRad and philanthropy, but for some of the capital projects that we want to undergo, it's going to require a lot more than philanthropy, and I'm excited about some of the opportunities the BizRad board is looking at to make that come together. This particular stat, 70,374, are the amount of folks that came through BASE, the past visits over a 12-month period. It's pretty remarkable in a town of 3,500 people that one facility has this many visitors a year. It actually is more than that, because if you come with your family and you swipe your BASE fob, you could be 3 people, but it only counts 1. So I think this number actually is a little less than it really is. But this is an amazing statistic, and it encourages us to continue to think about ways that BSEO can serve our community through recreation and build community. One other stat on there is at BASE, over the 12-month period, we had 10,715 participants in the group fitness and wellness classes, and that, again, is pretty remarkable, which ties into connecting. I love the fact that Deb chose the word connecting as well. I wasn't thinking wildlife, I'm sorry. I was thinking about people and the work that BSEO does to bring people together. I have heard time and time again, new members to our community thankfully found BASE because that allows them to feel like they're part of a community, particularly for those families or individuals that come into town that don't have school-age children. BASE is one of the few places where you can meet folks and do so through having fun, recreating, and creating a healthier and better life for yourself.
Thank you, Whitney Montgomery.
Now, I'm not... So I was supposed to answer what keeps me here, other than the taco bus. It's just the passion. This town is filled with passionate people who lean into things heavily.
Thank you. Kristen Gardner.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Kristen Gardner. I'm Chief Executive and Science Officer of the Gallatin River Task Force. And the Gallatin River Task Force is a nonprofit organization here in Big Sky working on water issues between Spanish Creek and Yellowstone National Park on the Upper Gallatin. And the reason that I keep on coming back to Big Sky has to do with the people. We have a transient population, but we have a really core group of passionate, dedicated community members, and love the mountains and rivers as well. So, all right. What is the next one? I already forgot. Okay, history.
Great.
All right. The Gallatin River Task Force was originated in 2000 as an effort out of Montana State University to collect water quality data because the Big Sky Water and Sewer District had obtained a discharge permit to discharge treated wastewater effluent directly into the Gallatin River. And so MSU wanted to collect water quality data to be able to compare before and after the Water and Sewer District actually discharge into the river. But the good news is that the Water and Sewer District never actually used that permit. And there was a group of volunteers in Big Sky that wanted to continue the effort in Big Sky and expand the programmatic work of the Gallatin River Task Force to more than monitoring. And so now today we use that monitoring data to inform the rest of our programmatic work, which is restoration, conservation, and advocacy. The picture here is a picture of our staff and volunteers out on the South Fork of the Gallatin River collecting water data. And I chose this picture for two reasons. One is because water data is paramount to how we prioritize our projects moving forward in restoration, advocacy, and conservation. So if you want to understand why we're doing the work that we're doing, it's because the data has told us that it's the best thing to do for the river. I also chose this picture because volunteers in our community is critical for the work that we do. We rely on volunteers for our water quality data collection, as well as our river cleanup, which we did 2 weeks ago, and collected 1.3 tons of trash along the stream banks of the Gallatin River. And then volunteers are also critical for our restoration projects. They help with vegetation planting, building fences and whatnot. So. All right, and where we are now, this is a bit of a downer, but we still do have 4 impaired waterways in our river, and I just want to make sure, in our area, and I want to make sure that our community is aware of that. And what an impaired waterway means is that it's not meeting its beneficial uses according to the state. And so the impaired waterways in the Big Sky area are the Middle Fork, the West Fork, the South Fork, and just recently the Upper Gallatin was deemed as impaired. And so a lot of our project priorities are working on reducing the amount of pollution in our rivers and making sure that they can support the beneficial uses, which are fisheries and recreation. And there's been a lot of, I do want to give a big shout out to our community. There's been a lot of significant investment in addressing those issues that we have in our community, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So hopefully by the time that I see our future vision of being a resilient community, we've addressed those impaired waterways, and we also are resilient to other pressures that we're seeing in our watershed, like increased growth and visitation, as well as the climate change impacts that we're seeing from floods, like the recent floods in Asheville, North Carolina, or South Carolina. And then also the Yellowstone River a couple of years ago, we could see some of those events here in the Gallatin River, as well as increased periods of drought. So there's studies out there that show that we're going to see earlier snowmelt, which is going to create warmer temperatures and warmer water temperatures, excuse me, that are going to really stress the fisheries that we care so much about and that support the wildlife and our world-class recreation. So really hoping that we can create a resilient community to all these pressures that we're seeing and will see in the future.
Amazing.
I have a question from the audience.
Oh my gosh, I have a couple texts too, which I love.
Yeah.
It means it's working. So we should start with those.
Let's start. I'm going to start with Deb. Could you tell us, for those of us who haven't memorized mile markers, where are these bridges potentially going to be located?
It's on.
I think I started off. Okay. All right, there we go. Great, yes. So the proposed application that went into the Federal Highways Administration in September is for the site, 3 sites essentially, south of Gallatin Gateway and between the bridge, the Gallatin River Bridge and Gallatin Gateway. So it's actually between the Turner land, so between the Flying D. So it's mile marker 72, and then a little bit south 71, and then down. So it's an overpass, an underpass, and what we're calling a bridge retrofit. So the bridge at Gallatin River is impassable right now for wildlife because it's so steep, like literally, humans even have a hard time getting down there. It will be modified in terms of landscaping for wildlife. So it's actually not super close to Big Sky. We do have 2 sites that, as you know, we're partnering with BizRad and others on to hopefully move those forward in the future.
Thank you, Deb. I think this one was sent to me during Deb's presentation. I'm assuming it's for you, but I'm going to pivot it to Kristen. a general one. How can our community get involved in helping with these issues? I know we were listening to, but let's hear that again. What can we do?
Well, volunteering, like I said, we really rely on volunteers to get our work done. Getting engaged and learning how you can make a difference. I think that individuals collectively can have a huge impact on the natural environment. So contacting any of the organizations that you hear from tonight and how you could assist in your land management actions or water use or what have you. And then financially investing in our work as well. We need financial investments to move our project forward as much as we need volunteers. So lots of ways to get involved.
I'm ready.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you, by the way. I saw another text come in. Whitney, let's move to you. More of a philosophical question. We think people come to Big Sky primarily focused on recreation. I think that's what draws a lot of us here. And then I'd say conservation in some ways is kind of one of the things that keeps us here. When a community is growing like Big Sky is, how do the two work together? How can recreation and conservation coexist? And I think that's a question for everybody if we want to.
That's a great question. It has to coexist, because if we don't conserve, we won't have a place to recreate. You know, Base is an indoor facility. It's not impacted by conservation necessarily. But all the areas that we want to go to, where we hike, where we ride our bikes, where we get on the rivers, right? It all requires protection of the environment around us. We are so friggin' lucky to live with national forest around 3 sides of us. Where else in the country does that exist? Not many, right? So we have to think that way for about everything we do. And Asheville is in North Carolina, where my wife and daughter live and are dealing with the disaster. But I want to bring that up, not to correct your geography, but if we don't start thinking about how we protect our lands and our conservation for everything, it's all for naught. I mean, we're going to go up in smoke one day if we don't. So it's important that we think about combining conservation, recreation, and our daily life.
Thank you. Would you all like to weigh in?
Well, I can just jump in really quick. I think along those same lines, the reason that we as an organization have focused in on this landscape in particular, and you guys as a community have been so involved and supportive of this, is we will lose these wildlife populations if they're not able to move. And exactly like Whitney's saying, we have to protect the habitat, but we also have to ensure that they can move from one place to another. So this restitching together, that's really how we think of I could have used the word reconnecting too, and that's really what we're working on. And particularly as traffic volumes go up and more people come to the area.
I don't have a big picture on time. Do you understand where we are on time?
We're waiting for Jenny, our time master. Was that really like 15 minutes exactly? Yes, I'm getting a nod. Amazing. Okay, that's all the time we have. Thank you all so much. Thanks to our first panel, Recreation and Conservation. Next up, we're going to bring up our Health and Safety panel. And the carrot is going to take the center. Perfect. We're going to bring up Amy Vance and Matt Boxmeyer, who is the tallest guy in Big Sky right now. And I told him to watch his head. That screen is 6'3", and he's 6'8". That's amazing. Quick trivia question while we're getting set on questions. What was the highest snow year in Big Sky's recorded history? Talk amongst yourselves.
96.
I heard 97. Is that whatever we're just trying to get at it? Does anyone disagree with 97? Okay, perfect. And I got a text that said we had 1,042 inches of snow recorded in Cook City, which is 86 feet, which is the height of the Bozeman Post Office, which is amazing, and that's a lot of snow. And now we're going to move on to public safety. So with us, we have Amy Vance with Big Sky Vantage and Matt Boxmeyer with the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office. We're going to get started with Amy, and just so you can see here, Amy, you've got a screen right there, so you can look there for your slides as they advance.
Can you hear me? All
Yeah,
right.
thank you so
Perfect.
much.
My name is Amy Vance. I am a nurse practitioner. I work for Bozeman Health. I work up at the B2 clinic in the winter. on the mountain, so you don't want to see me. And I am the founder of Big Sky Bandage, which I'm going to talk to you more about.
Perfect. So we had a question, Amy, to get us started.
Yes.
What is it that keeps you in Big
Yeah.
Sky or in Montana, and
Yeah.
what keeps you coming back?
So we definitely came for the recreation and the landscape, and we come back for the people. The bar's pretty low because we're from the DC area originally, but the people bring us back for sure. Okay, so Big Sky Bandage, we're just finishing our inaugural year. It was founded really because I would see patients on a daily basis who live and work here, who would delay getting care or refuse care altogether because they couldn't afford it. And that's hard to see day in and day out, and I knew we could do better, and I knew our community could do better. So under the wing of Big Sky Rotary and the tremendous generosity of Spanish Peaks Foundation, Moonlight Community Foundation, Yellowstone Club Community Foundation, we were able to launch Big Sky Bandage, which we try to make very easy for people who work and live here who need it. BigSkyBandage.org, and I drop cards all over town. They put in their information. It's kind of on the, put where they're from and put basically a picture of their bill, and we pay up to $500 of that bill. It's not the solution for the healthcare system. That's the cards where you'll see all over town in the picture, and the QR code is on the back, so they scan it with their phones. People can fill out the form on their phones. Our goal is that it's less than 2 minutes to fill out, and they can certainly ask questions as well on it. And we believe that it makes a difference for people who work and live here. So we can go to the next slide. 42, my husband said, is Jackie Robinson's retired number all the way around. That number is actually 45 now, and it's 45 employers represented in Big Sky for our inaugural year. So the use of the program was widespread. So it wasn't just the resort, it was all over, from small businesses, people who work at small businesses, to larger organizations. And the feedback was great. So we're in the hundreds of people who have been reimbursed or who we paid that bill directly. 100%, I think that's an important number, of the money that was donated goes directly back to people. So there's no overhead cost. All the work is volunteer because we want to make it truly a program that's giving back directly to the community. And my word is healthy. I do believe that we are a healthier community when programs like this are able to exist. We don't live in pockets. So when people are generous enough to make donations to people who need it, those people who work and live here are not, spreading contagious diseases, things like that. We are actually healthier together when people are getting their health care taken care of in a timely manner. And I believe that.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy Vance. Matt Boxmeyer.
My name's Matt Boxmeyer. I'm a captain with the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office. Started my career in 2008 in Big Sky. Now I run the Search and Rescue Division, which encompasses Big Sky, West Yellowstone, and the Valley, Bozeman. What keeps me in Montana? I've traveled all over the country with the military, and Montana is like the best. Smells good. You can see the mountains except for when it's smoky, but it's the best. The people are the best. The opportunities for my kids growing up, it's awesome. History of Big Sky. This is more or less Gallatin County Search and Rescue. Prior to 1985, it was everything was performed by the sheriff's posse, and you think of horses and stuff like that. It did occur. Everyone's aware of the incident at Big Sky with Kerry Swenson back in the day. I still have pictures of those on our computers. And then in 1985, Gallatin County Search and Rescue was formed with the introduction of a mill levy. Next slide. This is what we do. These are all of our volunteers, not all of them. We got 140 volunteers, 150-ish volunteers throughout the entire county. But these are the Big Sky. This is the Big Sky section, and these guys are amazing, and gals are amazing. So, where we are now, my initial slide just had the 3,484 because I think that's pretty impactful. That's how many volunteer hours are spent every year, and it increases almost every year. Those are the hours that the volunteers put in just training and on missions in the community, outside the community, other counties, and so yeah, I think it's pretty impactful. 110 people served, 130 missions throughout the entire valley, which was down from the prior year. It's usually around 140 or more. And then we have 150, 154-ish members. It kind of fluctuates from time to time. So, yeah, next slide. Service, I think that we provide an excellent service to the community, to all the residents and the visitors. Obviously, people come to Big Sky to recreate, and in recreating, there's a higher chance of getting injured, and that's where our search and rescue volunteers come in, and they go out in all types of weather. They're prepared to stay out overnight in snowstorms just to rescue you, rescue somebody you know, or rescue somebody that just came here to spend money in the community by renting sleds or skiing at one of the local resorts. Next slide. I think that's it.
Thank you all so much for being up here, and thank you for your service to the community. It's really wonderful to get to see you and to get to learn more about your work. I have a simple question. This one's for Amy. This came from someone I know in the audience, which is great. I love to see the texting. By the way, if you can't see it, you can come down. That's my phone number. This is a simple one. How many volunteers, if you can give a range, how many volunteers make up Big Sky Bandage? And then also, what is that conversation usually like when someone's thinking about volunteering? How do you kind of sway them to come join the cause?
Yeah. So I can round up. The volunteer numbers are 2. So it's my.
So you're saying there's opportunity
there's
for
opportunity,
more.
but that's really not true because there's so many people. So we do the processing, and then because we're under Big Sky Rotary Foundation, the whole team there helps because they're helping with the accounting and all the pieces that support a project like that and provide leadership and guidance in that. And then really, I think a lot of the volunteer opportunities come from people sharing with other people. So one of the challenges we have with a zero budget is getting the word out. So thank you for this opportunity to do that. And I would say Hope, our community health worker, so people putting the word out to people who they know might need those things, that is to me volunteers. We've tried to streamline it to make it easy so the processing doesn't need it, but if people can get the word out, and of course, if there's ever volunteering for donations, we're all in for that as well.
So what you're telling us is if someone was inspired in this room after this, they could come talk to you and they could sign up and maybe give a donation, especially because 100% are going to the service.
To the
That's
service,
amazing.
correct.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks, Amy.
And I'm getting some very specific questions that I think would be best answered by engaging with you
Sure.
afterwards.
And I would just say on bigskybandage.org, there is an email on there, so feel free to email us. It comes to one of those 2 people, so feel free to email, and we do try to get back to people within 24 hours. We try to process claims within 3 days is our goal.
Thank you.
I have a question for the sheriff. What are your priorities for this upcoming year?
The priorities are, updating the equipment, transitioning some of Big Sky Search and Rescue Inc.'s equipment out, using some of the BizRad money and then some of the county mill levy money to upgrade radios up here, vehicles. I just actually paid for the vehicle. I got to pick it up tomorrow, a new vehicle for them to replace one of their aging vehicles and then continue to outfit them as best we can with the equipment that they need to go into the backcountry to safely execute these missions. People need to realize that snowmobiles are expensive and the snowmobiles are getting more and more powerful every year. And luckily, a lot of our volunteers really enjoy snowmobiling, and so they bring their own snowmobiles, which is awesome because we probably couldn't afford that many snowmobiles for the rescue team. So yeah, just upgrading, updating equipment, and giving them what they need to complete the mission.
Amy, are there any success stories that you can share without compromising anyone's, privacy?
I would just say that I'm always amazed. On our little form, we have this little optional section that people can say what it means, and I am guilty of that person that if anything says optional in a form, I just ignore it and keep moving on. And I would say 95% of the people fill it out, what's meaningful, and I will say definitely shed a tear or two about what people share in terms of their emotional struggle, sort of the financial piece they're in, and kind of what it meant. So that's really neat when people kind of share back, and so many do.
Thank you so much for the work that you've done.
We've still got some more specific questions coming in, but I want to throw just one here. We've been seeing a lot of emergencies lately, and I know it's front of mind for a lot of folks to say, what happens when in Big Sky we have that big emergency coming through? I'm kind of putting this to the sheriff's office here, but what would you recommend is the first step? Let's say the emergency is coming, it's on its way. What is the first step that you would recommend for the community to feel safe?
Well, I think it kind of depends on what the emergency is. I know that the sheriff's office just recently got a grant through BizRad for a community response trailer with signage and everything like that. If there's an emergency up here, whether it's a wildfire or earthquake or something like that, obviously the sheriff's office is going to start putting out, and Gallatin County Emergency Management will start putting out information on their websites and the news. Obviously there's only so many ways into Big Sky, so be patient, don't run people off the road, because if you get an accident in the canyon, everybody knows it can shut it down for quite a while, and so sometimes slower is faster.
I can just feel Lizzie Payton's energy saying, download the Everbridge app.
Yes.
That's the first step. I called it. Okay, good.
And I just heard slower is faster. That's a really great one for me. You know, I know it's case dependent, but thank you so much. Thank you very much to our health and safety panel and the Carrot. We really appreciate you all being up here. Give them a round of applause. Thanks for being here. Next, we're going to move on to the Arts and Culture panel. And we're going to bring up Brian Hurlbut with the Arts Council of Big Sky, Britt Deersch from Big Sky Out, and Ann Swan from the World Language Initiative. So if you all want to come on up, that's great. Tally, how are your trivia questions going?
Oh yeah, trivia. What do we have here?
I have like 20, so I can keep going.
Well, yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, here's the big question. What was the population of Gallatin County in 1920?
4,500.
It was about 15,000. What is it in 2020? 120,000, a growth of 650%. Interestingly, Big Sky splits two counties. What was the population of Madison County in 1920? 7,500. And what is the population of Madison County in 2020? It's about 8,300, a growth of 15% over 100 years. Talk about the difference of two counties, huh? How about that? With that, we're going to move into arts and culture. Perfect segue. So we have Brian Hurlbut, Britt Deersch, and Ann Swan. The rules are 30 seconds approximately per slide. Make sure you look up here. That's going to be your slide moving forward. And the question to everyone to introduce themselves is, what keeps you in Montana? What keeps you coming back? You can answer that in any fashion. I think we're going to start with Mr. Hurlbut.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Hurlbut. I'm the Executive Director of the Arts Council of Big Sky. And I think what keeps me in Big Sky is possibility. I think personally and professionally, I think there's just very few places left in the country where there's so much we can do in our community that's going to make an impact on all of us. And, we already moved to the next slide. Yeah, Executive Director of the Arts Council. The Arts Council was founded in 1988 as the Big Sky Association for the Arts. I know there's a couple former board members in the audience, so that's going way back. And it was really founded by a group of volunteers who wanted to make Big Sky a better place to live and inject some arts and culture into the community. So the first event was in 1988 with the New World Symphony from Miami, which was kind of a big deal back then. And fast forward to now, we feel like we are one of the leading arts nonprofits in Southwest Montana. And just a couple things I want to mention over the last 35 years we've been around. It's really in the last 10 years we've seen the growth of the Arts Council. 10 years ago, we had 0 art classes that we offered. In 2024, we offered 214. We had 1 sculpture, which was up at the resort off of the White Wing Run, I believe. And now we have 12 public art sculptures throughout Big Sky. 10 years ago, we had 30,000 people over the course of the summer in Music in the Mountains. This year, we estimate we had over 45,000 people come to Big Sky for music. 10 years ago, we had 1 full-time employee, that was me. And today we have 5 full-time employees, 4 part-timers. So we have obviously grown a lot, and we have our own space. And this picture, a lot of people might think I might show a slide of Music in the Mountains for this, but to me, this really exemplifies what we are today. This is a picture of one of our open studios run by our amazing studio director, Julie Edwards. And to me, this just shows the cross-section of the community that the Arts Council serves. There's people from all different sectors of the community. One of those students is now a ceramics teacher for the Arts Council. So it just really shows how important the arts are to the community. 50,000 people is what our services touch annually. A big part of that is obviously Music in the Mountains, like I said, 45,000 people. But just a couple other little fun stats. This year we had over 2,600 youth participants in our art classes. We supported more than 660 working artists. We had 900 art class participants in the studio. And I think what's really impressive is we had 163 people volunteer, over 540 volunteer hours. And 195 of those volunteer hours were youth. Kids that volunteered for the Arts Council. So I have to give a shout out to our volunteer coordinator, Tamara, who's really upped our game this year, so thank you. And I also chose Connected. Obviously, it's kind of a buzzword for everybody tonight, but I just think we want to make sure that the arts connect everybody in the community, and we feel like we partner with everybody in the community, from developers to different nonprofit organizations, and we think that the arts are a vital part of the community as much as recreation and conservation, but we don't want to do that in a silo. We want to do it with everybody else too. So I think that's what the future is looking towards.
Thank you, Brian Hurlbut. Next up, we have Britt Diersch from Big Sky Out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Britt Diersch, she, they. I am the founder and director of Big Sky Out. We are a new queer organization here in Big Sky. We are dedicated to creating and maintaining 2S LGBTQIA spaces here in Big Sky. How we started is myself and a couple friends, wanted to put on a little pride march last summer, and over an unexpected, almost 100 people attended, which was really great. And in that, we kind of learned that there is an outlet needed for queer community to not only meet each other, but meet other people that also support them and welcome them in our town. We have become our own 501c3 in November of last year, so we are encroaching on our 1 year, which is really exciting. Why do we do our work? Our organization focuses on 3 important things. Our most important is we really focus on facilitating queer joy. And what queer joy is just creating safe spaces for queer folks like myself to express themselves in an authentic way. A second focus of ours is to increase queer visibility and for people to know that there are other queer folks here. And our last thing that we really put a lot of focus on is building support systems for those queer folks. So by creating these spaces, we are also directly combating our mental health crisis that greatly affects our community and many other small ski towns as well. Where we are now, we have focused most of our energy on hosting events to build that queer community. So creating spaces for us to meet each other. And some of our most notable events, I'd say our biggest, most notable event was our Summer Pride event. We had a drag show here at Wampak, and we had a pride march through town center, and we had our Montana State Representative Zoe Zephyr come and speak, which was really exciting. But we most primarily host monthly events throughout the year as well. Where we are going, we are really focused on a sense of belonging and for everyone, and to facilitate eventually more connections to queer resources too. And one really big thing that we are looking forward to is creating more events in collaboration with other organizations and companies in town. It's really important for us to have a vocal support from our community so that us queer folk really know that we are welcomed to show up as our full authentic selves. And one big event that we're really excited for this year that we are looking for collaboration on is we are hosting Big Sky Resort's first ever queer ski weekend, which we are very excited about. But yeah, the biggest way you can support us is collaboration and vocal support. And with all that being said, thank you very much for inviting us to be here. And we're really excited to see where the next year will take us.
Thank you, Britt Dersch. Now Anne from the World Language Initiative.
Yeah, hi. Thank you guys so much for having us here today. I'm Anne Swan with World Language Initiative, headquartered in Bozeman, but we're super excited. We have both staff member, Zeta, I don't know if she's out there. Oh yeah, right there. Zeta is here in Big Sky, as well as we have a board member living up here. So we feel super excited about having both of them represent the community directly, and really, they should probably be up here instead of me, but you get me instead. Our mission is to make language and culture education available to all Montanans. That is our goal, and that's what we work towards every day. So we started in 2012 as so many good things do, as a grassroots initiative, a couple of parents who were looking for language access for their K-5 children. There wasn't any. Most schools historically in the US have language education that starts in the middle and high schools, and so they wanted their kids to have that earlier. So they started this organization as the Friends of World Language, and then it became a 501c3 in 2017. We had 6 languages at the time and added English in 2021 as our 7th. So we have Arabic, Spanish, German, French, Mandarin, Japanese, and English. So we're offering all of those. Sometimes not all at the same time. It kind of depends on teachers, but most of the time we have all of those. And then moved to Big Sky late 22, early 23, adding our English programming up here for adults, and then Spanish last fall. And then we've been really working on custom language programming, so a lot of organizations and businesses in the community in Big Sky, as well as in Gallatin County, are looking for support for their staff, for the people that they work with, and so we've been working really hard to kind of build out that customized language program. So I cheated a little bit, and I made a JPEG picture with 4 photos, and so that is kind of a mashup of the people that both come and attend our classes, youth and adults. We have amazing teachers. 13 of our 15 teachers this fall are native language speakers, so they're teaching the language that they are native to, which is amazing. It brings a different dynamic, but we have 15 wonderful teachers. Both the adult classes are actually Big Sky students, so we have those and are super excited. We had 841 students that took our programs last year, and 100 of those in Big Sky. So So getting great, wonderful attendance in our English and Spanish classes up here. And I have a quote that I think really encompasses that. It just said, "We are honest, hardworking people who have dreams and goals to achieve. These courses are a great help to master the language. And thus we can be more beneficial people for the community in general." So I thought that was really important. Where we are now, 60% of the world is bilingual or multilingual. Only 20% of the US is multilingual or bilingual, and only 5% of Montana. So that is why we do the work that we do, especially in Big Sky. We have a community that people are coming to visit or live or recreate from all over the world. And so the more that we can provide opportunities for people to build language, the better off we all are. It opens doors for people. And then you guys are going to laugh when you see the next word. Clearly, there's a theme. So our one word is connection. We really believe that you cannot have a thriving community without it, and language is connection. It's communication, and it matters to people that they are able to talk to each other, even if it's just greeting somebody. I had a conversation with a teacher recently who said, "Besides teaching, I just want to be able to tell my students that I'm really happy they're there." So I think it's really important, and it can't be, it's not just enrichment, it's critical at this point. And we're going to continue to build language programming for Big Sky and Gallatin County that is community generated and community demanded. So what people want, I would love to hear more of it. Right now we're getting some questions about youth programming up here. That's definitely something that we aren't doing right now, but are looking towards. If you have a language you would love to see, we'd love to hear it. If you are a multilingual speaker yourself, I'd love to meet you. I know that we have a German group that meets up here. I'd love to know more about other people who are meeting around the language world. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Anne. Let's discuss arts and culture. Tally, you look like you got a question.
I haven't received any questions from the audience, so fire away if something is bubbling up in your mind. Let's see. This is to Britt. What are some of the challenges your members face when seeking support and advocacy?
I think the biggest struggle is honestly just finding each other. I think this town has a lot of bubbles. I think every business has its own bubble, every part of this town has its own bubble, and there's a lot of queer people within all of those and allies within all of those, and we are just trying really hard to bridge the gap between all of those communities so that we can find community through all the people we have in this town.
Thanks, Brett. I got a question for all three. When we talk about growth in Big Sky, right now there's a lot of focus on this capital improvement plan, right? Like we're talking about the physical building, the physical needs of infrastructure. It's a conversation that's coming up a lot. And I know when I talk to people about that capital improvement plan, I know that where people are thinking is how do we serve people, but the conversation often shifts more to the cost of things. How can we recenter the conversation around the culture of Big Sky and the people of Big Sky when we talk about its future? And by Big Sky, I also mean kind of the greater Southwest Montana.
I'd say sharing resources is a really good one. I think there are a lot of resources in this town, and I think sharing is always better. I think it's hard to find things when you're by yourself, especially us being a new organization here. We found it really difficult to even just find space to gather, and the cost of finding space to gather, and I think sharing resources is a big thing to help that.
Yeah, I would add that as you look at how the community is growing and how we want to react to that, how we want to stay connected, really thinking about who is or isn't at the table and what you may or may not have to do to get the right people there. So that might require shifting the way meetings are held or the way that you're doing things, and being really, really intentional about thinking like, are we missing somebody's input here? I think that's really important kind of in that conversation of culture and community.
I would add maybe, I think just participating in the arts. You know, there are so many things in Big Sky that are free to participate. Going to the Pride March is free. Going to see a band at a local venue might be free. There's just a lot of opportunities to get out there and experience the arts and culture and what that can mean to you as a community member.
And that being said, too, I think it means a lot to see those community members, too, especially for us, people showing up for smaller communities. It does mean a lot to the people you're showing up for as well.
Kind of like what we see tonight. This is amazing. Let's give everyone a round of applause from our arts and culture panel. Thank you, Brian. Thanks, Britt. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it. Next up, we're going to bring up our Public Works panel. We've got Mace Mangold from the WGM Group and Rich Chandler from Low Mountain Land Company. I have another trivia question. It related to the arts. Here's the question. How many times has Willie Nelson played in Big Sky, and in what years? Brian, what was the answer? 3. And what were the years again? Willie Nelson has played in Big Sky 3 times. That's amazing. Okay, guys, we're on to Public Works, and we're talking about water, wastewater, disposal, all of those great things. We're going to get started with Mace. By the way, did anybody go to the grand opening today of the wastewater recovery and reuse facility?
I screwed up too.
WRRF. That was amazing. It's happening. It's real, and it just opened. Congratulations on the opening of that. We're going to get started. Guys, reminder, we've got that there, 30 seconds on the clock with each one, and we're asking each of you, what keeps you in Montana? What do you miss when you leave?
Okay, everybody hear me? Good. My voice isn't as good as John, so I'm going to be faster, more concise. Mace Mangold, WGM Group. I'm wearing 2 hats today. VP of Infrastructure for WGM. That's my full-time job. Lately, my other full-time job is helping the Gallatin Canyon Water and Sewer District get up and running, get their projects funded, designed, and it's been a 4+ year endeavor, and we're marching forward. So wearing really 2 hats tonight. As far as the canyon, the mission provides central sewer to the Gallatin Canyon corridor in order to protect the Gallatin River plus public health. So it's a 2-pronged project that everybody thinks of the river, but there's a public health element that I always want to remind, because we talk river, but we also need to protect our health. So I'm ready for the next slide. Canyon District really started in 2020, but there was a multi-decade effort to really put the project in motion. Septics were identified, I think, 2008 and earlier. Gallatin River Task Force was really the impetus of putting it on the radar. In 2020 is when we published the Canyon Sewer Feasibility Study to evaluate how can we tackle these septics and what is the cost, what are the solutions, and those solutions were funding, number one. 1% for infrastructure provided $12 million to get the project momentum. That was July 2020. That was the community's vote. If you remember, it was an outreach effort leading up to that, and then the community stepping up. Without that money, the Canyon Sewer feasibility study would have paused, and we'd have just buried it, put it on the shelf. So kudos to the community. 6 months later, roughly, the Canyon District formed. That was a group of 4 parcels that took the initiative to establish that district, and that opened the doors for more funding. So we've continued to chase that money. 2021 preliminary engineering report, 2022, 2023 was really how do we prioritize what septics to collect, and that was impacts to the river, what's the best bang of the buck to protect the river, and then what is the risk to individual users in that corridor that are drinking groundwater that is the same water that the septic systems are discharging to. So identifying where to prioritize those dollars and the project and the collection. Present day, this is a map of the Canyon Sewer district boundary. This is really small, I recognize that, but you can go to GallatinCanyonWSD.com, look at a pretty picture full size and read about the project benefits. Number one, it started as a Protect the Gallatin River. Number two, human health. Number three, that's grown over time, is affordable housing. Density allows for more affordable housing, allows for the community to really take care of its workers and become a community even more so than you are today. So it's really a multifaceted project that started with the river, but really grew into a broad basis of community benefit, and we're continuing to tell that story because it's a challenging project to gain momentum. Next slide is 2 tons of nitrogen. Through the various efforts to identify impacts to the Gallatin River, which Kristen mentioned is impaired, the designation was recently applied to that in terms of algae growth, and I would say the driving force of that algae growth is the nitrogen to the river contributed by septics in the Canyon corridor. Our focus area is really stoplight down to River Grill. That's the corridor we're looking at. A lot of individual systems, commercial systems, all those systems inevitably end up into the river. It's the shallow aquifer that goes right into the Gallatin River. So to pull that 2 tons of nitrogen out of the aquifer and then use that water more wisely throughout the community, whether that's snow making up the hill, groundwater recharge, golf course irrigation, let's pull that load to where it doesn't impact the river. So my word, water-wise. My history is fundamentally a water resource engineer. The Big Sky community allows me to apply that knowledge in a way that no other community in Montana really has let me do. I live in Manhattan. I like to share my brain with that community, but they don't like the challenges that you all like. So to be water-wise and play in this sandbox up here is really what keeps me coming back. And I guess I missed that off the very get-go, but that is why I'm up here on a weekly basis and working with Rich Chandler and brainstorming with Kristen Gardner and really a lot of entities in this community of how do we use that water better and how do we keep our rivers clean. And it's a fun opportunity, and I appreciate you keeping engaged with the whole endeavor. Thank you.
All right. Am I on?
Yeah, it's cool.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rich Chandler. All right, thanks. There we go on that battery. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rich Chandler. I'm the environmental vice president for Lone Mountain Land Company. And in that capacity, my team and I, we oversee all the water quality monitoring, permitting and compliance, as well as all of our land conservation programs, such as forestry, noxious weed management, wildlife education, and outreach. Our goal here is to be responsible stewards of the land and leave a lasting positive impact on this beautiful landscape. I think to start this conversation, really, we need to look back to the inception of the Yellowstone Club back in 1997. Yellowstone Club took a leap ahead in 2009 with the purchase of Cross Harbor's ownership. And since that time, we've developed similar environmental programs for all of our Lone Mountain Land companies, Moonlight Basin, Spanish Peaks, Town Center, as well as Crazy Mountain Ranch out in Clyde Park. We take our role seriously to implement state-of-the-art conservation efforts in collaboration with all of our partners across the area, most notably Big Sky Water County Sewer District, multiple engineering and environmental groups, as well as local, state, and county and federal agencies. One thing I'd like to point out in this next photo here is just the beauty. I think this summarizes why we're all here. You know, we see the snow, we see the serenity. My goal is to make sure that my children's children get to see the same landscape, and I think it's imperative on all of us within this community to accept that responsibility. We do, and and we're proud to do it. We're moving forward with a lot of amazing initiatives, and one of those, and this is a unique number to throw out there, but it's 150 million gallons. And that number is how much water we reuse beneficially since last November across all of our projects, in both irrigation and in snowmaking. That's water that would have otherwise been sourced with valuable drinking water. Everything that Mace is talking about with the water reclamation facilities and recovery is technology working at its best. These efforts do in fact lead to a positive impact on our watershed. Water is a scarcity in Montana, and it's incumbent upon us as a community to manage this resource wisely and to the highest levels that technology can afford. I picked one that's close to the community here tonight's words, but I picked collaboration. And we're all in this together. You know, it's not just us here, Lone Mountain Land Company, driving the reuse with the sewer districts. Unlike so many other communities across the state and across the country who directly discharge reclaimed water into their rivers and streams, Big Sky has chosen to be a zero direct discharge community, and that's something that everyone in this room really should be proud of. It takes everybody, and it takes a buy-in of the community at every level. Our work is purposeful, it's well-intended, and it's carefully managed. And most importantly, it goes beyond just us and our time here. We're proud to be part of this. We recognize that this is an opportunity to be a model for other communities in the Mountain West to follow, and we're happy to be part of it as a group. So thank you.
I have a question from the audience for Mace about the cost of the Canyon District.
Expensive, but we have come a long ways in the last 4 years to raise money. Total project costs that we're running with right now, and it all depends on start of the project to the end of the project, and that is a moving target. The number I've been running with is $55 million. That project can shrink to a budget if we can't bring all that money, fund that scale of project, but we don't want to do a subpar project. The success of the Canyon Sewer Project is to collect as many septic systems as possible. So if we shrink the project, we are reducing the impact and the benefit to the river. So we're continuing to angle for that $55 million scale. There's a lot of money across the state, across the nation that's really focused on protecting waterways, but the public health element, septic removal across the state is a big emphasis. So we're optimistic that we can keep this affordable for the community.
Yes. I have a lot of questions coming in. Thank you all. So we know this is a really important topic, so maybe we'll hang out for a little bit if that's okay with you guys. It was great being reminded by Kristen earlier that the formation of the Gallatin River Task Force came when the community had a permit to discharge and we chose not to. That was important for me to hear tonight. Mace, if that's okay, we're going to stay on you. Is that okay if we just dig a little bit deeper into the specifics on finding that funding? Because I know everybody kind of went like this when we heard $55 million, and we just opened a $50 million plant. Now we're talking about another $55 million. What are you learning so far? What are some more specifics about where that funding is going to come from?
Yeah, so Big Sky Resort Area District has been the backbone since the get-go. The initial funding to do the study in the first place, facilitated with Gallatin River Task Force, but then that 1% for infrastructure to give that $12 million backbone was huge. So that really gave the momentum to go chase state funding, federal funding, and there's more to land. We are anticipating a 1% ask to match or basically climb that funding, but that's a dynamic. We're working with SRF for low-cost loans, and we're working through all these financing mechanisms to where we don't need to put the whole burden on the community. In addition, private development is a tool to fund public infrastructure. Without that private development, this project probably is not feasible. That backbone that private development can bring to the project is critical. Rather than being individual septics where you pump in $1 million to handle 100 houses, use that money for public infrastructure that's here for the Big Sky community for the next 40 years. Compile those resources into one solution rather than a bunch of individual solutions. So it's a really multifaceted approach, and that's probably my number one focus for the next 6-12 months is piecing all that together and bringing it all together. So. There will be funding discussion tomorrow at the Joint County Commission, and we will be reaching out to the county commissioners for additional funding. So attend if you can.
And SRF, really quickly, for folks who aren't up to speed on acronyms.
Yeah, state revolving fund. So I'll generalize it as subsidized infrastructure money, low-cost loan, 2.5%, and it's a key for the state of Montana to fund these projects. Sewer and water is not cheap, but at the same time, they're the backbone of our communities. To be able to fund tourism and resort tax brings that revenue into infrastructure, and so state revolving fund really is that key tool for more than just Big Sky. It's really every small, big town across the state. So we're reaching out to them and piecing that together. So.
Okay, great. I have a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to try to, maybe I can try to smash them together into one. So correct me at any point, Kristen, yell out if I'm speaking out of turn. Correct me if I'm wrong, there was not an algae bloom this year.
Kristen would know better than me.
Is that correct? Not in the Gallatin River, in the Taylor Fork there was. Okay, so thank you for that complication. Just to repeat that, in the Taylor Fork there was, but not in the Gallatin River. There's a lot of conversation around this. Any thoughts that you're comfortable sharing on why that complication has come in, especially within the context, trying to smash these questions together? We're proud of being a zero discharge community. What does zero discharge really mean?
Yeah.
Why is there not an algae bloom this year? What are those connections?
Well, let Rich tackle this. I think he...
Sorry. I'm just a vessel.
Well, as Kristen often says, it's complex. But what this zero direct discharge means is that we don't have a piping conveyance to surface waters. We don't purposefully discharge any of our reclaimed water to surface waters, like so many communities across Montana do. And we do that because we recognize that this water that's reclaimed, that's repurified, is a phenomenal resource for us to reuse. We're talking about treatment that cuts the nutrients down to essentially 1 to 5 parts per million. We're talking about water that's fully disinfected, it's safe to recreate on, it's free of all viruses and bacteria, and it presents just like tap water. Why would we send that downstream? Why would we not want to keep that in our upper watershed? So when we start talking about 150 million gallons of water, we're talking about the equivalent of 2,000 homes that could feed on a year-round basis downstream. So it's incumbent upon us to look at water differently than what our great-grandparents did and our grandparents did. You know, we need to start recycling more. There's no additional water that's going to be afforded to this planet. We have to manage more wisely with the resources that we have. And I think everyone in this room should be incredibly proud to look at the accomplishments that we've done as a community to get this far. And I would forecast here in the next 5 or 10 years, watch what happens with these other communities that become more water stressed. They're going to come asking for us for help. Yep.
Thanks, Rich.
I'm going to keep going with Rich. Lessons learned. What have you learned over the last, call it 5 or so years that you've been working on this huge project, that being gray snowmaking?
It takes a team. It takes a community. It takes the support of so many credible organizations. And it takes complete transparency to all those that are going to be part of the operational programs, those that are recreating on it, to recognize that we're in this together. You know, when we turned the snowmaking guns on up at YC this last fall, you know, it became a whole new venture of recycling within our community. So many of us are, you know, used to cardboard, recycling plastic. Now we're recycling water in a different way that's tangible. Folks can ski on it. In a year like we had last year where, you know, we were pressed to open up ski terrain in February, I think we recognize the connection from a tourism standpoint, from an importance of getting folks out here to recreate, as Whitney so well spoke to. We're a recreational community. We have to deliver. But we also can do it more wisely and not pull from our valuable ground and surface waters to do so.
Thanks, Rich. We're getting a lot of questions. I feel like we should keep them up for a little longer, if that's okay, guys.
I'm all for it.
I was part of a presentation a couple weeks ago where Mace was talking about the canyon, and a lot of people were in town who weren't in Big Sky and maybe not necessarily big skiers, but there was a lot of excitement around the technology that is really coming to fruition here in Big Sky and potential applications outside of recreation communities. Is there any chance you might be willing to share some thoughts and excitement around that?
Yeah, we've been telling the Big Sky story to legislators, county commissioners, and I do think it's starting to click that Big Sky is doing it different than a lot of Montana. I interact with DEQ representatives, I'll say on a monthly basis, and every time I go talk to them, they're very supportive of what Big Sky is doing to pave the path a bit. Snowmaking, that Big Sky did that. That's not a Montana-driven, that's a Big Sky-driven effort. Irrigation reuse, groundwater recharge, aquifer recharge that the Gallatin River Task Force has really looked at. There are so many tools in the toolbox to use water better, more wisely, optimize it, close the loop, use that water 4 times before you just send it down the river. And so to have other towns, the Montana Department of Environment and Quality, really appreciate what Big Sky is showing is why I like working up here. It's fun to show how to do it better, and there's plenty of opportunity to keep doing it.
Thanks, Mace.
Okay. I'm almost there. Rich, what gets you excited about the type of work that you're doing?
It's new. It's challenging. Nobody wants to be the first in line on something new that requires permits and challenges at every level of the way. And when you finally see it come to fruition and you see everybody on board with something that started within a community and we're able to make that happen, that newness, it's incredible. I didn't move out here just for the enjoyment of the mountains. I wanted to do something that was impactful, and I think I can speak to everyone in this room that's been up here tonight, and we're proud to be part of a solution.
I'm still getting lots of questions, so I know like there's pressure to move, but actually, guys, timing-wise, we're doing awesome. Like it's 7 o'clock. We still got an hour.
We have an hour?
Yeah, you're going to be up here for another hour. Here we go. Settle in. Here's an interesting one. I love this question. I just got it. Why is snowmaking good? Should we keep doing it? Should we do more of it? I know the answer is yes, but what is it specifically about beneficial reuse water for snowmaking that makes it different from fresh water?
I'm going to toot Rich's horn first. This is Rich's baby, so I do want him to answer on the back end. The reason I love it, it's an elegant solution. There's a natural nutrient nitrogen cycle and a runoff cycle, and using snowmaking or using reuse water for snowmaking, it's kind of that dilution is the solution to pollution type of dynamic. It fits with the environmental cycle. It's also an opportunity to recapture that snowmaking and recharge late fall or late summer. So it's just a great natural-based solution. And I'll let Rich probably add on to that. I know there's recreational benefits. There's a whole range.
Well, there certainly is recreational benefits. I think it checks so many boxes. It checks boxes that, live within the conservation piece, which you touched on, the nitrogen cycling, the natural filtration. It speaks to water conservation. We're adding water that, as I mentioned earlier, would have otherwise been discharged in most communities downstream. And instead of sending it downstream, we're sending it uphill and onto our ski runs. We're then compacting that snow to where that compacted snow melts out a lot slower than the uncompacted snow adjacent to it. So that's really important because that water then finds its way slowly into the watershed at its most upper reaches. And lastly, you spoke on the recreational side. Most ski areas who make snow, they pull water from either the surface water or groundwater. We have to ask ourselves, why are we doing stuff that is archaic at this point with our technology? We could be doing so much more. It's safe, It's wise and it's good conservation. And it has, most importantly, good intentions behind it.
It sounds like such a win-win-win. Is there anyone downstream who's maybe not getting water because we're pumping it back uphill? Are the ranchers in the room?
Yeah, the ranchers, the agricultural, the irrigators. There was just a recent piece in, I don't know if it's Explore Big Sky or Bozeman, that was the local agricultural community kind of touting Big Sky and saying thank you for paying attention to this water shortage. Their concerns are usually August. That's when they start to run out of water. Potentially they have to shut their pivots off. And by keeping the water up here longer, that increases the likelihood that they do not need to shut their water off. So in general, the downstream users are very favorable of what Big Sky is doing. And it might be not in general, it might be across the board. I just never want to say 100% that they all love it, but I'd say there's recognition from the valley that Big Sky is doing good.
More?
This has been amazing. Thank you guys so much for your time. Quick plug, you're going to get to hear more. You know, I'm fascinated talking to these guys. You're going to get more opportunities. Mace, you're presenting at the Joint County Commission meeting tomorrow morning. Lizzie, where is the Pizza with Purpose on Thursday? At the chapel. Pizza with Purpose, Thursday from 12 to 2. You're going to get to ask questions specifically about the canyon water and sewer. So if anything wasn't answered tonight, you're going to get more opportunities to meet because it's a very important project. Big round of applause for Mace and Rich. Thanks so much for being here, guys. We are now moving on to our fifth and final panel. If you got a get up stretch, please go ahead and do that. And then we're also going to be done before 8 o'clock, which is amazing. So we encourage everyone to stick around, hang out, meet your community leaders here in the reception area, and let's keep the conversation going. So for our fifth and final panel, we have Economic Development and Workforce with Laura Seafang from the Community Support Group, Chad Wilson from Big Sky Resort, and Mr. Matt Kidd from Lone Mountain Land Company. Thanks, guys, for being here.
It's just water. Oh, it's just water? I know, right? That's right.
Take a break or get it back. Now let's keep
Ending early is not bad.
Moving right along, and we are recording tonight. You'll be able to watch this later. Send it out to friends. Make sure that everybody gets a chance to see the evening. Okay, so the question to everyone to get started, when you talk about who you are and who you work for, we also want to learn a little bit more about you. What keeps you in Montana? What do you miss when you travel elsewhere and come back? I think we're going to get started with Laura Seafang.
Okay, thank you. Laura Seafang. I'm with the Community Support Group. I'm their coordinator and also acting not as an employee but a community volunteer. The mountains are certainly what drew me out here, but what kept me and what keeps me in Big Sky is just the attitude of the people here. Just that everybody wants to make this and keep this the last best place. Everyone works hard to just improve this place. I love it. There's so many opportunities for that. So it's been great. So the Community Support Group, that name might not be too descriptive to you what it's about. We're a new organization that just started in the last year, but it's all about trying to make this a more welcoming place for one of our largest part of our population, which is our seasonal workers. So if we go to the next slide, for quite a number of years, the Big Sky Rotary and All Saints Church were trying to put together a welcoming dinner for the seasonal workers in the winter, because that's our biggest population. And that went pretty well. But we learned over time that we weren't really reaching the audience as fully as we'd like to. And we found a lot of other members of the community wanted to be part of that welcoming experience. So we just expanded. And about this time last year, we have other members from the big employers like the resort, Lone Mountain Land Company, BASE is part of it, the Food Bank, the Chamber of Commerce, all have gotten together under kind of the Rotary leadership. I act really as a Rotarian there to try to pull together and really grow this into a bigger event for our seasonal workers. So with 1 year under our belt, this picture here is we created a website. This actually is a picture of our webpage that sits on the Visit Big Sky site. And you can see we've tried to put a one-stop shopping for all the seasonal workers that come to town. These folks often are international workers, but we also have a lot of people that come from across the U.S. And they're only here in Big Sky for 4 to 6 months, and they just get plopped in here, and the only people that they know are their roommates and maybe the 3 people they work with. Well, we want to make them really feel much more involved in the community. So on our webpage, we've got all kinds of events listed that we put together just for them. We've created this Big Sky Buddy program where locals can host a dinner, have a dinner in your home, where you can invite workers to come and have dinner, and you'll get people from lots of different countries there. We publish the Skyline schedule, because that's how all of them get around. They don't have cars. And we put together a lot of great things for them and link them to different events. So some of the kinds of events we put together in the last year, we had over the last summer and winter, 20 different events, including things like bowling up at Montage, whitewater rafting trips, bingo. We do a welcome party at Tips Up for both seasons. Tours to Yellowstone National Park, where we discount heavily to get kids to be able to go there. So tubing down the mountain, so lots of different things. And we've had, in just our first year, over 400 workers, seasonal workers, attended these different events. And I think all of them have told us that they really loved getting to know the community a little bit better, getting to know other people. They come here to work, and most of them are college students that are coming to try to earn money to pay for their school when they go back home. But we want them to experience Montana and see the beauty of our community, of our state, and not just be working every day, but really get to appreciate all the things we love about Big Sky as well. So my word is to have it be a welcoming community, that we welcome everybody that's here, and we appreciate these folks that are coming and helping us have the lifestyle that we enjoy through all their hard work, but that they really feel like we appreciate them, we're glad that they're here, and we want to make them feel part of our community.
Thank you, Laura C. Fang. Next up, Mr. Wilson.
All right, got sound here? Gotcha. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. What a great turnout, and thanks to the chamber and everybody else that's putting on an amazing week. Super fun to engage with so many great events this week. The reason I came here is, like a lot of people, a sense of adventure, the vast outdoors and all the opportunities we have, but you know, I think what keeps us here, like so many other people have said, is our community. Sometimes I feel like my neighbors are a second set of parents for my boys. So that's, I think, what kind of keeps us here. My name's Chad, and I lead the construction and development efforts at Big Sky Resort. We can go to the next slide. I think most people kind of know the history of Big Sky, the resort anyway. You know, Chet Huntley was a leader of his time, and we owe him thanks for much of what we have today. But our ownership and leadership and the support of so many people in this community have really got us to where we are today. You know, we are a top-tier destination resort. Obviously, we don't have time to go through all the history, but that history includes a lot of monumental projects, industry-shifting projects throughout the years, including, you know, housing initiatives that date back to the 90s, iconic projects like the Lone Peak Tram in '95, and of course our brand new one this past year. And the nice thing is we feel young. We know this is just a start, and we really look forward to all the opportunities we have ahead of us. You know, everything we do at the resort is to unlock a new sense of discovery in our guests. We could have easily put a photo of Whitney shredding off the peak here.
If it exists.
But you know, everything we invest in our resort, you know, has that goal in mind. both winter and of course summer too. A lot of our recent initiatives include things that offer more adventure over the summer months as well. And that's both for our teammates and our guests. It's so great to hear some of Laura's words about our seasonal employees. And we've put so much effort into making our community more livable with our housing initiatives as well. You can go to the next slide. Where are we now? Almost 10 years ago, we established a very ambitious vision, a 2025 vision. And I'm proud to say we're almost complete with all of those things in the vision. The last large piece of the puzzle is the Explorer Gondola that will open in December of next year. This type of investment in our brand experience has drawn people from all over the country and all over the world to enjoy our resort, both as teammates and as guests. And it's been special to be a part of that team that gets to unlock that potential that Big Sky Resort has. Next slide. Our vision is to lead the transformation of the American resort experience. That's the measuring stick that we use for everything we do. I wish we had a formal vision of what the next 50 years will be like, but we don't have that. And I can assure you it has big aspirations, big iconic things, just like the last 50 years have been. And so that being said, we're excited to discuss anything we've got going here in the next few months and the next year. Because, like I said, it's ambitious and I think will be transformational. Thanks.
Thank you, Chad. Next up, Matt Kidd, President, Low Mountain Land Company.
John, I don't know if it's just me, but the lights feel brighter tonight. Like it feels.
Can everybody see everyone up here okay?
I feel the heat and the intensity of the light. This also is just sparkling water. I promise. Matt Kidd, President of Low Mountain Land Company. Grateful to be here tonight. Grateful for everyone that we've heard from and all these amazing organizations doing awesome things in our community. I guess I would start with that, the gratitude. Like I have just a tremendous amount of gratitude for the community that exists here today. Your question, like what brought us here and what keeps me here, work brought me here. And through that, I developed a huge love of the place. And I would say purpose keeps me here more than anything else. But I am the president of Low Mountain Land Company, and we are a community development organization focused on the sustainable long-term advancement of projects in Big Sky. And I'm going to just focus on the word development for a second, because I think that word can get kind of a bad rap. People can be afraid of it or scared of it, but we're proud of it. We are doing amazing things as a community, as an organization, and we're proud of the work that we're doing as a developer. A little bit of our history, Rich touched on this as well, so I like to talk about the fact that Low Mountain Land Company was formed from Cross Harbor's experience with the Yellowstone Club, or at least the first 5 years of that experience with the Yellowstone Club. And it's been a year of anniversaries, with 15 years since the purchase of Yellowstone Club and 10 years since the formation of Low Mountain Land Company. This year, we first formed Low Mountain Land Company to work on Spanish Peaks and Moonlight specifically, and then the work has only grown since then around first working with the Simpkins on some town center projects early on, working with the resort, working on these housing and community housing, workforce housing efforts. And I would say a monumental milestone in our history was in 2022 when, through the acquisition of the remainder of Town Center from the Simpkins, we became solely responsible for every past problem, every past, present, and future problem that has and ever will exist in Big Sky. And even though we've done nothing in Town Center since then, we embrace that, and we embrace the challenges that exist for us and for the community, and here we are. This picture is of the farmers market, and I think is an example of how we're trying to support our goal all along has been to create a foundation for this community to be able to thrive, and bringing people together, helping Big Sky to be able to grow into what it is a big part of what we do. Let's go to the next slide. I forgot it was this one first. Where are we now? One quick stat, although I don't love the word beds, but it's a big number, so we thought we'd share it. But 2,624 is the number of beds that we have contributed to date to workforce and community housing, and we've got a lot more in the works. You know, not everybody likes it when I say there are more locals living in Big Sky than ever before, and a year from now there will be more locals living in Big Sky than ever before. I think that's a good thing, even though not everybody, in fact, does. But that's a key stat for us. So on the last slide, let's just sort of make a couple other points on opportunity. You know, we often sort of look at other mountain destinations as comparisons to what's going on here in Big Sky and all of the efforts underway here and how they compare to other places. And I think it's pretty easy to look at some other places like Sun Valley, like a lot of places in Colorado, like maybe even Jackson Hole, and to sort of think, you know what, their peak, when they were sort of the most exciting, the most impactful, the most going on, is in the past. But for Big Sky, like, our peak is very much in the future. What are we going to make of it? Let's embrace the moment. Let's not be overwhelmed by, you know, sort of negativity or concern that can be out there, but let's engage, let's embrace the opportunity that exists for all of us. We would, you know, get involved in something, and let's make Big Sky all that it can be. Let's embrace the moment that exists here for our community. So we see a lot of opportunity.
Thank you, Matt Kidd.
I have a few, and Chad anticipated that this might happen. Questions about lift ticket prices.
Oh boy, I wish I was
promised I
the
wouldn't
best to respond to those, but let her rip. We'll see what happens.
I don't know, they're just not that specific. It's just like, it's so expensive.
Chad doesn't set the prices.
Fortunately, I don't set the prices, but yes.
I promised Chad that I wouldn't give him those questions.
You did.
I
You
did.
promise me
I did,
that,
and I
yes.
just broke my question.
I remember
Okay. Instead, nope, someone's still texting me about that same topic. Okay, I'll switch to Matt. What are your plans for the land around Hummocks and Uplands?
What you see is what you get. To build more trails and make it really amazing land for the community to be able to recreate in. Someone asked me earlier, apparently there was like some piece of machinery up there that in conjunction with BSCO, but we're trying to find places to be able to groom more winter trails up there as well. But what you see is what you get, more and more trails.
Awesome. I have one for Laura. Is there a network of locals with national park passes that offer to bring J1s into the national parks?
That's a great idea. No. But
Get
I love
involved.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So, yep.
Reach out to Laura if you have a national park pass and want to take J1s into the park with you.
Yep. Yep.
Great.
Mine are coming in now. This is good. Matt, you mentioned earlier that you don't like the word beds. Can we elaborate on that a little bit more? The question is...
Well,
okay. I think the question says, how do we change
Pivot,
beds
John,
to
pivot.
doors? That's good. We're
doors
keeping
into
entertained.
homes. I mean, homes is
Yeah.
the goal. But a lot of times people share homes, and we like to think about how many people we're bringing into the community in totality. So that's why beds kind of won't go away entirely, but I like to think of it as homes and how many homes that we're creating. I think the work that Laura and her organization is doing is amazing to support the seasonal workforce that that exists. But I view it as homes. It's just that doesn't always tell the whole story of the sort of numbers of people that are coming here.
And I've heard a lot, worse than beds, let's just say, since we don't like that one, is pillows. I've heard pillows described. So pillows, beds, doors, rooms, homes.
Well,
but that's the focus, right? That's the focus that we're hearing a lot from the community. That's what we're hearing from Big Sky Resort, finding homes, figuring out ways to increase the supply, especially for the missing middle that we talked about last year.
Look, keep in mind, we built 80 homes in Town Center in 2017 before people were talking about beds and pillows. But then it was sort of after that, and then with COVID, which created such a housing crisis that there was nowhere for anyone working in Big Sky to live, and so we needed beds and pillows, and I think even we've responded to that, and we've built 2,600. The resort's built a ton, and now the focus does have to be more on livability, and the things that Laura is talking about, making sure that everybody coming to this community is enjoying the quality of life that's available here, and the focus on creating homes for people.
As a follow-up to the Yellowstone National Park opportunities, apparently, I don't know who sent me this message, LMLC in Montage organizes free Yellowstone National Park trips for their J1 workers.
Yes, they did, and we're willing to open that up really to all of our seasonal workers. We're really trying to not be focused just on where a worker is employed, but just have it be, if you're here as a seasonal worker, which means less than a year, you're invited to attend any of our events. So, but Lone Mountain Land did set up with contracted with a tour company to help bring trips a couple days a week, all summer long, brought employees down to the park. And they had wonderful experiences.
I think to clarify, that's often not something that just, Lone Mountain Land Company is making that available for anyone living in the housing that we manage. That's sort of where that program comes from, and we want to make the housing available to everyone. There's many local businesses and teachers and various important community members that live in these projects as well, and that's where that comes from. It's not just like people that sit at 25 Town Center Avenue in that office, that sort of thing.
No.
I just had 13 texts come in like 15 seconds. I like that these questions are getting asked. I think it's an opportunity. Chad and Matt and Laura, is there any way we can just do a quick overview celebration of the community housing projects that have recently come online and what are planned for the new future? I think it might be worth it to just go over what's in the works in the short term, in the near term.
Yeah, I guess around October 1st, we opened our Levinsky Lodge complex. Not to use the term beds, Matt, sorry, but there's 210 residents in that building. How about that? Residents instead, right? We have, really it's a diverse offering of housing, which is the first one of its kind that we've done. Apartment style, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and then also dorm styles for those that can't afford their own apartments. Some of the most exciting things about that community is the livability, like Matt said. We've got private rooms for those that have dorms that want some private space. Workout rooms, community rooms with pool tables, ping pong, and all those things. So really trying to embrace livability and getting people to come and stay here rather than make a fast exit,
And I'll speak on behalf of the Housing Trust, if David's okay with that. But the Housing Trust was formed to really focus on the non-seasonal workers, the folks that are here wanting to stay more long-term, and really left to the big employers to focus on the seasonal workforce housing. But the Housing Trust, as you know, 4 or 5 years ago, completed Meadowview, which was a home ownership opportunity for folks who lived full-time in Big Sky, and we have 52 families up there. Interestingly, about 6 or 7 of those turned over in the last year, where people were moving on, moving out, as happens, and we were able to put the next folks that were in line on the wait list into those homes, which is great. Riverview is just opening right now. That's where the old American Bank building, where the thrift store is. You see all that development along the road there. The ones that are to the west are Housing Trust owned, and those are all apartments, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. They received a lot of federal funding for those projects that was able to get people at a low income level, lower than the average here, were able to apply and get into that housing. And then all the rest of the buildings in that complex are Lone Mountain Lands, and Matt can speak to those, as well as Powder Light across the street.
Can I just ask a really quick specific question, because these are getting asked? On the turnover of the Meadowview projects, those are deed restricted. There are appreciation caps there. I know we probably can't disclose the price there, but is that formula working? Are you seeing
It sure
that
is. It's imperative for workforce housing to stay workforce housing. There has to be a deed restriction that restricts appreciation, because a lot of units were built in town center back in early 2000s, but then when they went and flipped over to become market rate housing, it quickly became not affordable for a local worker. It's pretty easy to figure out the formula, what a bank is going to loan someone that makes a living wage in Big Sky. It's not really negotiable. They know what they're going to loan, and that's what workforce housing has to cost. So the Meadowviews were sold at a rate that was affordable for folks in Big Sky, and they could only appreciate 2% per year that the person owned it. So when they sold that unit, they sold it back to the Housing Trust for that little bit of appreciation, and it's still an affordable price that the Housing Trust could sell it to the next people.
I have a nomenclature question that's come in from the public asking about the difference between community housing and workforce housing. Is there a difference?
No. We kind of use those interchangeably, but the rule of thumb the Housing Trust has used is you have to have been in Big Sky to buy a Meadowview at least 2 years. Okay.
I agree with Laura that there isn't a difference, but I think it's also, we can see that Big Sky as a resort-oriented destination will always have a degree of a transient portion of our community that does turn over fairly frequently. And so there are housing efforts that focus on that portion of our population and housing efforts that focus on the year-round community and people that hopefully will never leave and make a life for themselves here. And so I try to just stay focused on community housing, but there are different markets to serve.
And that's a super important point, is all the developers and the Housing Trust look at a whole spectrum of housing needs and really try to understand how much housing is available at different income levels and different how lengths of time people have been here, because one size doesn't fit all. And families grow and need now 3-bedroom houses or even bigger. And so we have to have housing choices in each of those segments.
I'll answer the prior question, but I'll start by commenting that the most important issue for the future affordability of to-be-built housing in Big Sky is what is the cost to create that housing? What is the cost of construction? Somebody's phone's. Whitney's
the bluegrass
playing
band in the
tunes.
front row.
That's all right. What the cost of construction is, and people don't necessarily realize it. Look, let me make another point on construction. If people are totally against construction, I'm not sure Big Sky is the place for you, because it will be transformative for the next decade plus, to Chad's point, and there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here, but construction is going to be a way of life. I mean, look at the opportunity that exists, and it's just reality. Now, back to my points on housing, we actually, in construction, we have largely paused in ways that people don't really feel it, but we have made significant pauses in construction around our efforts to try to make sure that those future costs aren't unbearably expensive. There was no new residential construction started in Yellowstone Club, Spanish Peaks, Moonlight Basin, or the Meadow in town or Town Center in any of Lone Mountain Land Company's projects in 2024. Very limited last year in 23, will be actually quite limited in 2025. So even though there's a lot of stuff that's been happening and there's a lot in the works, there's actually also been a big slowdown underway in terms of new starts. But we did build Powder Light. I get these dates confused, but Powder Light finished up in advance of at least last winter. Riverview is finishing up over the course of this winter on the left-hand side of the road. The Bucks T4 project has undergone a complete transformation and renovation in a way that will be reopened not only for community housing, but also as a community restaurant. That will happen before the end of the winter season. We have focused on the Gateway area as well by necessity. I think we view Gateway as an extension of Big Sky more than an extension of Bozeman, and so we focused on that area as well. But what I am the most passionate about of anything we have going on in the entirety of our sort of world is the Cold Smoke project. And it's really been my passion project going back for 4 years, and since we started the complex land aggregation to be able to even create this opportunity, bringing together 7+ different land parcels. And this is an incredibly complicated project that will take the support of all of us and the work of the entire community to bring to fruition to truly develop, I don't want to say a definitive number, but 300+ homes to be owned by year-round locals to help support Big Sky's thriving year-round community over the next decades. And that project is being done in conjunction with the resort tax and the housing trust. It's still early days, but it's an unbelievable opportunity for this community.
We have a half hour left in the evening, and we really want to encourage you all to stick around because a lot of amazing information has been thrown out there, and we want to see you engaging. We could sit up here and talk about housing for the rest of the night. We want the conversation to be continuing. We want everyone to be working together. One of the words that I saw happen on this screen most tonight was connected. This is where we want to be moving forward as a community. And now, for the next half hour, we have an opportunity to connect with leaders in the community. We encourage you to stick around. I know I got a lot of very specific questions for this panel. Please take that opportunity to approach these leaders and get some answers that you're looking for.
And their email addresses are here on your agenda.
Along with our phone numbers. So we're all open here.
Chad.Wilson@BigSkyResort.com.
Thank you all so much for coming. This is just day 2 of Community Week. We've got 3 more great days. Thanks to all of our panelists for coming tonight. And thanks to you all for being here and watching online. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks so much.